They tried to pin my sister's $43,000 debt on me like it was nothing, like I was just the cleanup crew for every mistake she ever made. But that wasn't even the worst part. Because when I said no, when I finally pushed back, I found out something they never meant for me to see. A hidden account. A trust fund I was never told about. And suddenly, everything made sense why they treated her like gold and me like a backup plan. They didn't just use me for money, they used me for silence, for obedience, for stability, for anything that made their lives easier while mine kept getting smaller. But the truth doesn't stay buried forever. And when they threw a party to celebrate her success, I showed up. Not for revenge, not to hurt them, just to say what they never let me say. And when the truth came out, I didn't have to yell. I didn't have to fight, because when a lie is big enough, sometimes it collapses on its own. I was halfway through cleaning my tiny kitchen when my phone rang. It was my dad. Now, that might not sound strange, but trust me, it was. My parents don't just call, not unless they need something. That's how it's always been. And even though I should have let it go to voicemail, I didn't. I still had that little reflex in me. The one that jumps when they call. I answered. Hey Dad, no small talk. No, how are you? He jumped right in. We need you to help your sister. I paused. Okay, with what? She's in a bit of a bind. It's nothing serious, but she's got some credit card debt, and the interest is ridiculous. It would mean a lot if you could just take care of it for now. We'll figure it out later. I stood there silent, not surprised, just disappointed. Again, I asked, how much are we talking? He didn't flinch. 43,000. I actually laughed, not because it was funny, but because I thought it was some kind of joke. 43,000, that's not a bind. Dad, that's a disaster. He said, don't be dramatic. You have savings, a good job. She doesn't. You've always been more stable. And there it was, the story of my life in 2 sentences. I was the stable one, the responsible one, the backup plan, always there to catch whatever my parents or my sister dropped. I said, you're asking me to take on her debt. He replied, it's not about blame, it's about family. We're all in this together. Funny how we only exist when they need something. I tried to stay calm. Dad, I've worked for everything I have. I've paid my way through school, skipped vacations, lived cheap, saved every dollar. You know that. And you're telling me I should just hand it over because she maxed out credit cards. He sighed. You always make things about the past. This isn't about that. But it was. Because the past is where it all started. I was the one who stayed up late helping them with bills. When they lost the house in 2008, I was the one who gave up my dorm and commuted 2 hours every day to help at home when Mom got sick. I was the one who worked 2 jobs while my sister partied her way through college and dropped out. And now, suddenly I was supposed to be her financial savior. I asked him, where's her accountability in this? What's she doing to fix it? Silence. Then, she's overwhelmed. She needs support, not shame. That hit me harder than I expected. Because I'd been overwhelmed too plenty of times, but no one ever paused to ask how I was doing. They just handed me another burden and called it love. I said, I'm sorry, Dad, but I'm not doing this. He didn't yell, he didn't beg, he just went cold. Don't expect to be part of this family if you can't be there when it counts. I felt something in me shut off. Not because I didn't care, but because I'd heard that line before, so many times, and I finally understood it for what it was, control. I said, I've always been there when it counted. Maybe that's the problem. He hung up. No goodbye, no second chance, just a click. And the thing that hurt the most wasn't the ask. It wasn't even the amount, it was how easy it was for him to make me the villain for saying no. I sat down on my couch, phone still in my hand, heart pounding, not with anger, with grief. That quiet, invisible kind you don't even know how to name. The kind that comes when you finally see your family for who they really are, not the version you hope they'll become. For the rest of the night, I couldn't shake it. $43,000. That wasn't just a number. That was months of my life. Maybe years, and they thought they could just assign it to me like a chore, like I owed them. But here's the thing. You can only carry someone else's weight for so long before you start sinking with it. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to let that happen. I wasn't going to pay for someone else's recklessness. Just to keep a broken piece, something told me this was bigger than a money problem. That this wasn't just a bad decision, it was a pattern. One I'd never questioned. Until now, and deep down, I had a feeling. If I started pulling at the threads, I wasn't going to like what came loose. But I also knew I had to pull anyway. The next morning I woke up thinking maybe I'd overreacted. That maybe the phone call with my dad was just another episode in the long history of dysfunctional family dynamics I'd gotten too used to. But that thought didn't last long, because 2 hours later I got a text, not from my dad, from my sister. It said, can you just take care of this? You know Mom and Dad don't have the credit. You're the only one who can fix this right now. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. No hello, no apology, no explanation. Just entitlement, like it was a given. Like I was the designated cleaner of every mess she left behind. And that's when something shifted in me. I stopped feeling guilty, stopped wondering if I was being too harsh, and I started asking real questions. Because it wasn't just about $43,000, it was about every single time. They'd used me under the label of family, like the time they borrowed my graduation gift money to cover a car payment and promised they'd pay me back, then never brought it up again. Or when I co-signed on a small loan for my sister years ago because she said it was for a business class. Found out later she used it to fly out for a music festival with her friends. She never finished school. I let all those things slide because I didn't want to be the one starting fights. I told myself, it's just money, or they need it. Help, or the worst one. That's what family does. But what I didn't see back then was how one-sided it all was. They didn't ask me for help. They expected it. And when I said no, suddenly I was selfish, dramatic, ungrateful. I started thinking about the timeline, about how my sister's spending never quite made sense. Luxury bags, trips, always the latest phone. But no job that ever lasted more than a few months. And my parents never questioned it. They defended her, covered for her, said she was just trying to figure things out. I decided to dig a little deeper. I logged into my credit monitoring app just to be sure, and there it was. 2 months ago, someone had attempted to open a credit card in my name. Flagged and denied, thankfully. But the address on the application, my parents' house, I stared at it for a long time, not wanting to believe it, so I checked my email for any authorization requests. And sure enough, there was one I'd missed, hidden in spam. A verification link for a joint card application listing my name and hers. I forwarded it to myself, saved the screenshot, and just sat there. They weren't just asking me to pay a debt. They'd already tried to put it in my name. That wasn't a request. That was theft. That was betrayal. And now it all made sense. The urgency, the guilt-tripping, the pressure. They hadn't called because they needed help. They called because they got caught. And I wish I could say I was surprised, but I wasn't. I was just done. Done pretending they didn't know what they were doing. Done believing it was all just bad judgment. This was intentional, strategic, and I wasn't going to be there fallback anymore. I sent one message, group text, to my dad, my mum, and my sister. It said, "You tried to move her debt into my name without my consent. I have documentation. I suggest you fix this before I take legal steps. Do not contact me unless it's through an attorney." 10 minutes later, my sister called. I didn't pick up. Then my mum called, left a voicemail crying, saying I was tearing the family apart, but I didn't reply because I finally understood something I should have realized a long time ago. I wasn't the one breaking this family. I was the one they built it on, and this time I wasn't going to carry it for them. I thought the worst part was the money. $40,000. That's what they said it was. That's what they begged me to cover. That's what they tried to quietly shift onto me without asking. But it turns out, the money was just the surface. The real debt wasn't financial. It was the lies underneath it. After I sent the group message threatening legal action, things went quiet. No calls, no texts, just complete silence. Not even my mum tried to soften it this time, which, honestly, was a first. I was still going through emails and financial alerts when something caught my eye. Forwarded message. At first glance, it didn't seem like anything. A bank notification my sister had accidentally CC'd me on months ago. I must have missed it at the time, buried under work and spam. But the subject line made me pause. Trust account, activity alert, trust account. I didn't know she had one. None of us did. Growing up, we weren't the kind of family that had hidden money or long-term plans. It was always paycheck to paycheck. At least, that's what they told me. I opened the email. It was from a private bank. A large withdrawal had been made from an account tied to my parents' name and my sister's, over $27,000. The transaction was from 6 months ago. It wasn't a loan. It wasn't credit. It was a payout. And I recognized the account number. Prefixed, it was the same bank where my grandfather used to keep his estate. When he died, he left a small inheritance. We were told it was split evenly between my parents and his brother's family. Nothing major, just enough to help with bills and final expenses. But here it was. Proof that a trust account did exist. One that had my sister's name on it, not mine. I sat there, rereading it over and over, trying to make sense of it. My heart was pounding, not from the number, but from what it meant. Because if my sister had access to that kind of money, why was she asking me to cover her debt? Why were my parents pretending they were all tapped out? I dug deeper, pulled out old tax files, paperwork, anything I still had copies of from when I used to help them with bills years ago, and tucked in the back of a folder labeled 2019 Dad Taxes. I found something I hadn't noticed before, a handwritten memo. Sloppy, rushed, but it was my mom's handwriting. It said, "Disperse split, $14,000 to emergency fund, $20,000 to trust, a primary, a dot as in Amber. My sister." They'd funneled nearly all of Grandpa's money into a private account with her as the beneficiary. And none for me. No one ever told me. Not a word. That inheritance, I was told there wasn't enough for me. That things were complicated, that it was tied up in legal stuff. I believed them, because why wouldn't I? They were my parents. But this was planned. They weren't just enabling her. They were protecting her, funding her. And then, When she screwed up, they looked at me like the safety net, the backup, the reliable one. They didn't want me to help her. They wanted me to erase the evidence, make it all disappear. Without asking questions, I took screenshots, every email, every document. I printed copies and saved backups on a drive. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted truth. That night I sat on my couch staring at a photo on the shelf. It was the four of us, me, Amber, Mom and Dad, on the front porch of our old house. We were smiling, laughing, probably just after dinner or something. For a second, I felt a lump in my throat. That version of us didn't exist anymore. Maybe it never did. I thought about everything I'd done for them over the years. Every sacrifice, every quiet yes when I should have said no. I thought I was doing the right thing, holding the family together, earning my place, but now I knew the truth. They never saw me as equal. I was the insurance policy, Amber was the investment, and the debt. It wasn't just financial, it was emotional, generational, buried under years of favoritism, secrecy, and manipulation. They didn't just want me to pay her balance, they wanted me to buy into the lie again, but this time I wasn't going to. This time I wasn't going to. This time I was going to bring it all out into the light. A few weeks after everything went quiet, I got the invitation that came in the mail, gold trim, fancy calligraphy, like they were throwing a royal wedding. Please join us to celebrate Amber's new business launch and a new chapter for our family. No mention of me, no apology, just a picture-perfect attempt to paint over the mess they'd made. It was being held at a country club my parents could barely afford. I recognized the venue. It was the kind of place you rent to impress people you barely know. For a second, I thought about tossing the invite, pretending I never saw it, but something in me said no, not this time. Because they weren't just trying to rewrite the story, they were doing it publicly, trying to shine it up, dress it in nice clothes, and serve it with hors d'oeuvres. And I knew the truth now. They wanted to celebrate her success. The business she launched with trust money they told me didn't exist. They wanted to smile in front of the people while burying the fact that they tried to dump her debt on me, and I couldn't let them keep doing that. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want a scene. I just wanted the truth to breathe. So, IRSVPD, the day of the party. I walked in alone, calm, quiet. I didn't dress to impress. I dressed like myself, like someone who had nothing to prove but everything to say. The moment my mom saw me, I could feel the tension ripple through her smile. She came over, arms open like everything was fine. You made it. I just looked at her, of course. Wouldn't miss the big celebration. My dad didn't say a word. He stayed near the bar pretending to be busy. Amber, she was glowing. New dress, new heels, laughing loudly like she owned the room, like none of it had ever happened. And that's when I noticed it. On the main table there was a trifold brochure, professional, glossy, Amber Lynn Creative Consulting, empowering young women to take control of their finances. I blinked. I picked one up, read the back. She was giving a speech about financial independence. The irony nearly made me laugh out loud, but I didn't. I waited. I stood near the back as she took the mic. She thanked everyone for coming, talked about her journey, talked about how hard it had been to overcome obstacles, how grateful she was for a supportive family that believed in her. People clapped. My parents beamed like proud royalty. And when she opened the floor for questions, I raised my hand. She smiled. Oh, my sister's here. Everyone, this is my older sister. She's been such a rock in our family. The room turned to me in assetsteady.com. Amber, I was just wondering, how exactly did you fund this business? Was it before or after the trust account withdrawal? Silence. Dead still. Silence. Her face drained. Someone laughed awkwardly, thinking it was a joke. I held up a folder. I have the bank documents here. The transfer from the family account, the one you and Mom told me didn't exist. You used that to start this, right? After trying to move your debt into my name. There was a gasp. Amber stammered. This isn't the place. No, it's the perfect place, I said. You made this public. You invited people here to celebrate a version of you that doesn't exist. But I think people deserve the truth, don't you? My dad stepped forward, angry now. That's enough. I looked him dead in the eye. No, Dad. Enough was when you tried to steal my name for her mistakes. Enough was when you buried the inheritance and told me it was gone. Enough was when you made me the safety net without ever once saying thank you. And then I walked out. No yelling, no crying. Just the truth, laid bare. Let them deal with the silence now. Let them feel what it's like when the story can't be controlled, because I wasn't their fixer anymore. I wasn't the shadow behind the golden child. I was done being used, and in one moment, with one truth, their perfect little picture cracked. Not because I broke it, because it was never real to begin with. I never got a call after the party. Not from my dad, not from my mom, not even from Amber. Just silence. And honestly, that was louder than anything they could have said. There was no apology, no explanation, no attempt to spin it. And that told to me everything I needed to know, because when people are only sorry they got caught, they don't try to make it right. They just try to disappear. For a while, I kept expecting something. A knock on my door, a long email, maybe a voicemail from my mom crying again. But days passed, then weeks, and nothing came. And slowly, the tension started to leave my body. The constant ache in my chest, the what-ifs running through my head, it all started to fade. Because I realized I wasn't holding on anymore. I wasn't waiting to be loved the way I deserved. I wasn't holding my breath for their approval. I had let go, not in anger, in peace, because sometimes walking away isn't about being strong. It's about finally being tired. Tired of explaining yourself. Tired of earning what should have been freely given. Tired of carrying everyone else's weight when no one ever offered to carry yours. I started focusing on my own life again. My job, my friendships, the people who showed up for me without needing a performance. I stopped flinching every time my phone rang. And I stopped checking social media to see what Amber was pretending to be now. And then one day, I got a message from a distant cousin, one I hadn't spoken to in years. Hey, just wanted to say, I saw what happened at the party. A few of us did. And for what it's worth, I'm proud of you. I didn't even know what to say. I just stared at that message, and something inside me finally broke quietly, gently, not in sadness but in relief, because all those years I thought I was invisible, that no one saw what I was carrying, that no one noticed the way I was being used, dismissed, erased, but someone had seen. Maybe more than one, and suddenly, I didn't feel so alone. The truth didn't need to be shouted, it just needed to exist, and once it did all the work I used to try and do with tears and effort and begging for understanding. I didn't need revenge, I didn't need to burn the bridge, they burned it themselves. All I did was stop pouring water on it. And life. It opened up in ways I never expected. Quiet mornings that didn't start with dread. Laughter that didn't feel forced. Friends who knew the worst parts of me and stayed anyway. A version of me I hadn't seen in years, free, unfiltered, and unafraid. There were still moments, of course. Nights when I'd see a childhood photo or hear a song Mom used to play when she cleaned the house. I'd feel that familiar twist in my chest. I missed the idea of family, but I didn't miss them because the version of them I loved only ever existed in my imagination. The real version, the one who chose lies over honesty, performance over connection, silence over accountability. That version wasn't mine to fix, and I no longer wanted to. One day, months later, I drove past the house I grew up in. It was up for sale. The lawn, it was overgrown. The shutters were chipped. It looked tired, worn out. And I wondered if they were finally feeling what I had felt for so long, that something they thought would last forever had slowly, quietly fallen apart. Not because of one moment, but because of years of choices, little ones, unspoken ones. It wasn't just the trust fund, or the credit card, or the lies. It was all the moments they let me carry the weight alone. And now, I carried nothing. No debt, no guilt, no need to prove myself to people who only saw me when they needed something. I walked away without a fight, because the truth fought for me. And I didn't lose a family. I finally let go of the fantasy I was raised to believe in, and in its place, I found peace.